Hello everyone, Spencer Stabio here, and welcome to my recap and review of The Ones Who Live, Episode 5. Now, if you've seen my videos up to this point, you know the general gist, recap, review. Let's get into it. So we start off this episode with an interesting opening scene, and it's with none other than Father Gabriel, and he's dispatching like a walker, and we hear a helicopter, actually helicopters. There's more than one. That's basically the scene, and we see, Father Gabriel praying after he hears that second helicopter. So we'll get back to that later. So then we cut to this, just this nice montage of Rick and Michonne traveling through the country. And also, they end up over at Yellowstone, I believe. There's some nice scenery there. And, they walk into this shop. And Rick ends up finding this toothpaste that Michonne likes. And it's actually a callback to Season 6, Episode 10, I believe, where she wanted to get some toothpaste, and I don't know, I thought that was a funny callback. So, they're wandering through Yellowstone, and they end up coming across these three people that are struggling with these walkers that have... these walkers have, like... I don't know exactly, the right terminology, but it's like the minerals, like, from the area just growing, like, on... or building up on their faces and skin. I always like, I like it when, the creators or writers behind the show always find, like, new ways to come up with, like, new walker designs. I think that's pretty cool. But anyways, the material on them is hardened, so much it's like rocks on their faces, basically. So they're tough to take down. So, they eventually do take them down, but, anyways, they're offering, these three, strangers, some noodles, and, that doesn't end up going well. They try to rob, Rick and Michonne, and, these three basically nobodies dealing with Rick and Michonne, who's gonna end up on top, and so they end up, getting the noodles back from them. They tried to rob them, so their noodle privileges were rejected. So anyways, Rick and Michonne, they end up finding a cabin to spend the night. And then the next day, Jadis ends up finding them, or Anne, whichever, name you want to call her. I just always end up going with Jadis. Anyways, she finds them and wants to, eradicate them, basically. And so throughout the episode, we actually end up finding out that throughout the years, Father Gabriel has actually been meeting up with Jadis. I find that really interesting, and it also does answer that one question: how come Father Gabe never told anyone about what Jadis has been up to, or what kind of person she was. So I thought that was pretty neat, and we get some interesting scenes between them. Basically, Jadis is confiding in Father Gabriel every time they meet about how she thinks she's doing like the wrong thing for the right reasons, or the right thing for the wrong reasons, whichever way that goes. So I thought those were interesting bits through the episode. So anyways, in the present, Jadis wants to eradicate Rick and Michonne. They end up getting into a tussle, and there's like a car chase. They go after Jadis, and they end up causing her to crash. So Rick and Michonne are trying to track her down, and Jadis ends up coming across those three strangers we met earlier, she gets them to, do her bidding and help her. And, we have ourselves another tussle in this, like, exhibit area in Yellowstone. And more of those, uh, like, types of walkers with, the, minerals built up on their faces. They, end up, breaking into the place. And those three strangers, red shirts, end up dying. And in a we get to a moment where, Jadis is wounded, and, Jadis is basically explaining, if you stayed, Rick, you could have gotten in on the echelon briefing, and this echelon briefing is, really important. You could have found out, valuable information. And basically, Jadis, attempts to, trick Rick and Michonne into, like, making a deal. But they don't, they end up not falling for that, and Michonne and Rick and Michonne get the best of her. And in a surprising twist, Jadis ends up getting bitten. I was not expecting that. So we get another, in my opinion, pretty interesting scene where, Jadis is, talking about how she's always, struggled with what, like, decisions to make and who she wants, and with who she wants to be, going back and forth between, Jadis and Anne. So I think, So in this conversation, she does end up giving up where the location of where the file is on who Rick is and where he came from, and on Alexandria and all of that. And that's up over at the Cascadian base, which I believe the summit or the echelon briefing will be held. And then after that, Jadis is asking Rick and Michonne not to go after the CRM, and Michonne just, straight up tells Jadis to her face that, like, no, we are going to go after them. And I like Jadis's reaction to this. She just kind of laughs it off, like, like, of course you're going after them. So basically, yeah, I think ultimately what led Jadis to that decision to tell Rick and Michonne where that file was, Father Gabriel, and how much, of an impact, he did have on Jadis. So Jadis, asks Rick to, put a bullet in her head, and yeah, Rick goes through with that, and that's the end of Jadis. So we move on to Rick and Michonne, talking about, what to do next, and how, they're going to get into that summit, that echelon briefing, and find that file and try and find a way to take out, most of them as they can. Try and do as much damage as they can. And we get a nice moment where Rick ends up actually officially proposing to Michonne. And it was a ring that Father Gabriel actually had for Rick and Michonne. And so Rick gets on his knees, he proposes, and they share a nice moment together before pretty much going into the lion's den. And yeah, that's the episode. And overall, I thought this was actually a really good one. I did like, I like how, it delved deeper into Jadis's character, and just the struggle, within her. She's still an asshole, mind you, but yeah, I mean, overall, an interesting character. I thought, her exit did feel warranted. I did think she served her purpose. It's funny. It's funny. Like, I actually predicted that, like, she would end up being, like, the big bad for, like, this universe. Like, somehow she would work her way up to, like, the major general position in the CRM. I mean, that was my prediction, because what I took from her character initially is that she was like the sole survivor. Like, all she really cared about was herself. But yeah, this direction that the writers took with the character, I ended up actually not minding. I actually like it. So, anyways, also that opening scene. I have a prediction. Actually, several others have had this prediction, but this is something that's been, circulating in my mind, is that the CRM does end up finding out about Alexandria, and they end up bombing it to hell. I mean, that's, what I got from the first scene, because it didn't look like the rest of those flashbacks we saw in this episode. And like from the reaction of Father Gabriel, hearing those helicopters, he seemed scared, like he was praying, and yeah, I'll be anxious to see what happens in the finale for this season. I really don't have much else to say than that, other than I did like the scenery in this episode. I did like the scenery of like the area, the mountains, the trees, the geysers, the Yellowstone area. For some reason I got like Days Gone vibes. If you all know the game Days Gone, somewhat of a zombie game. Even though that game is set in Oregon, some of the scenery looked similar to me, so I thought that was pretty cool. But anyways, I hope you enjoyed this recap and review, and I'll be looking forward to the finale of hopefully season 1. I hope there's a season 2 of The Ones Who Live. So, all of you, have a good day.